this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Bit of a special kitchen time, sorting out my 3 new plants, including my 2 rarities. I think I've got everything I need. I've got some moss cooking, got some small bark. I've actually still got some moss mixed in from the last time I did some. Got some pots assorted, got my hydrogen peroxide, cinnamon, which I may or may not need. I've got some stakes, got my scissors, which I may or may not need. What we need is anti-scissors. See, scissors cut things off. We want something to stick things back on for when we haven't got any roots. And I've got my raffia and of course my essential coffee and assorted clips, which I may or may not need. So the may or may not need can go over there out the way. I won't need the pots for a bit. I'll declutter myself. Right, so these plants have had a chance to dry off a bit, as they were a bit damp when I got them. Now this Oncidium has done something strange. I didn't necessarily notice it yesterday, but it's been cut here. So this was cut off another plant, yes? That's obvious, so it's a division. And the oldest bulb, which is very shriveled, has a spike with some nice little delicate blooms on. They've obviously got a bit squashed because it's a very flat spike, but we've still got some buds to open. But then behind that new growth are the 2 new growths. Now that's odd, because you'd expect them to come out that side, yeah, direction of growth, probably. I mean, I didn't see what the plant this came off of. But nonetheless, we do have 2 new growths, and what I didn't notice yesterday is there are a few not very viable, but roots which hopefully I can get down in. I don't think they're going to grow, but what I'm expecting to happen with this is these 2 newer growths, yeah, they are going to push some roots out, and I doubt if I'll have to wait too long for them. I'm not showing any signs yet, but if new roots are going to grow, they're going to come from these 2 growths. They're highly unlikely to come from the older one, yeah. So I now have a dry rhizome that I'm happy with, and it's a shame actually, because it looks like where that was cut, there were actually some roots going down there and they all got cut off together. But nonetheless, you have to bear in mind, you sort of think to yourself, oh, it's got no roots, how's it going to live? It's got these. Don't forget, plants photosynthesize. They can create enough food to stay alive, providing they don't lose too much of what little hydration they've got through those leaves. So it's important to keep them a bit cooler, and it's important to keep the air around them quite moist. You have to bear in mind plants switch. They give off gases through their little pores, stomata or whatever they're called, and then they turn round and take air in, and that air, if it's moist, contains water, so it's capable of getting some hydration in through its leaves, not just through its roots. So that plant has got more than enough leaves to keep it alive for some considerable time, and during that time I hope to get some roots. Plan A. There's no signs of any rot around the base of here. Nonetheless, it's going to get hydrogen peroxide around that base, just in case there's any mould spores or anything lurking around that base. Don't forget, this is not actively growing. So I'm just going to give that a spray round to make sure. There is some fizzing going on, so the hydrogen peroxide's found something to do. So that's that one. I'll just stick that in the sink for a minute while we look at the other 2, which I must not get muddled up. So wherever these 2 go, their tags stay with them. Now with this one, I've got a conundrum. We have a yellowing pseudobulb here. Unfortunately, we also have a little growth out to the side of it. And I've got a horrible, no, I can actually see to do that. I was just going to say, I want that pseudobulb off, but what I don't want to do is damage the rhizome in such a way that that little growth ends up getting separated. I want it connected. So I'm going to take that. That bulb is a potential for rot. And looking at the rhizome underneath it, it's dry. Yeah? So there was no form of wet rot involved. So we've got a little growth out to the side, another little growth here, and its strongest growth here. We do have some roots. We've got a dried up bit of rhizome there, that can come off. So it's so dry, you know what I'm like, as soon as I get near a rhizome I look for pretty colours, but that's so dry I can't tell. And I'm certainly not cutting any more off. And again, because this was rather damp, when it came out the box, was quite damp. It's potential for mould spores to become active. Yeah? So even though I can't see anything, I don't know there's nothing there. So it's going to get a spray anyway, just to make sure the base is clean. Right, now it doesn't matter so much if I get my tags muddled up, because that one is an obvious shape now because it's got a little odd growth sticking out to the side. I've had a good look over these. I don't see any bugs anywhere, but I'm certainly not treating them for bugs at this time. I don't want to start introducing chemicals where I don't need them. If I need them down the line, they will get some. Now this is quite a nice little plant. This is the Phalaenopsis type Miltoniopsis. It's got quite a few little bulbs. It's got some roots. There's no active growing tips. Again, I've got a dead bit of rhizome at the base. We'll have that off. It's just a potential for a place to rot. If it's not there, it can't, can it? And again, that part of the rhizome's dry. So again, we'll give the base of the plant a good go. Start it off clean. When you do this, make sure you get everywhere. Through the gaps, into the middle. I'm coming down from the top at the moment. And then I'll switch round and have a go at the base and the roots and make sure it's clean. Right. That's the Phalaenopsis one, which is the bigger of the two without the gap in the middle. So as I said, I now don't need my tags because I know which ones are which. And I'm just going to dry that off. I actually need to get some more hydrogen peroxide. I made a mistake. It's the first time I've ever done that. I saw some on eBay for a good price. I thought, right, we'll have that. And then when I got it, it was only half a litre, not a litre. So it was actually more expensive than I paid the time before. It's still, you know, relative to the cost of growing orchids and energy bills and all that sort of thing, the cost of those little dispensables is not much. It's not worth the hassle of even worrying about it. Now I'm doing my day back to front. I've got a lot of watering to do. A lot. I've got all my pots to do and my mounts. And they do need doing today. So in amongst this, obviously last time I did some, I mixed in some medium bark for whatever reason, for what I was doing last time. So I'm trying to get some of those bits out and they'll go in the bottom of the pot. It's not worth, I'm using such small pots, it's not worth trying to put large bark in for crocking. Won't be enough room for any. But these are going in the smallest pot I can get them in. I'm going to apply that theory until proven wrong. And so far during this year and part of last year, I started putting all my Oncidium Alliance types, when repotted, into the smallest pot possible. And I've seen it, not read it, heard about it, I've seen it. They seem to push their roots on much faster, much better and much stronger, and fill the pot up. And then they're in that nice cosy position where they're not over potted. And if they do it substantially and completely fill the pot with a solid mass of roots, they can be lifted out and put in a bigger pot with some new media just around the outside, as long as the media you're leaving in there is fresh. It's no good enclosing old media with new stuff, because the old stuff will eventually go and that'll take some of your roots down with it. And okay, you may still have some good ones around the outside of the pot, but why lose the ones in the middle when you don't have to? The more roots you've got, the better chance you've got of a strong, healthy plant. It's all about what's under the base of the plant, not so much what's above. What's above will look after itself. Right, now let's see what we can do. These are going to be difficult, fiddly, whatever you want to call it, but this is not going to be easy because of their sheer size. Now I have got the tiniest of pots and the next size up. Let's have a look and see what the first one looks like. If that goes in that tiniest of pots, yep, that'll do. It doesn't need loads of media around it. The roots it's got are not actively growing at the moment. Now they may start to branch when they get a bit of new media and moisture around them. Right, I'm just going to put a couple of those bits in the bottom. And then we'll put some media in for it to sit on. Ugh. And what I'm going to do is get some moss out of my mix and just put it around the base and see if I can get it to stay there while I sit it in the pot, so that it's got a good bit of moss around the root area to start it. And then we'll plonk that in there and get some more substantial media around the outside to hold it firmer. This is, if I need to stake this, which I might be able to get away with not doing, it's going to be very difficult to get a stake to stand upright in such a small pot, because the stake will only have an inch of media to go in. It probably won't stay there very easily. No air gaps, not in this. If it was a mature Oncidium type with a good root system, the odd air gap here and there wouldn't matter. But I need this to hydrate the best it can given the roots it's got. And the last thing I need is the base of that plant buried. I need it sitting on the surface. So I'm firming the roots down now so that I can then just put some loose media around the base of the plant that's not compacted. And that will stop the base of the plant staying wet, because that will be the first part of the pot that dries off, and quickly, after it's been watered. That doesn't need staking, I've got away with that one. Right, so that's one done. Now under normal circumstances with a good root system I'd probably leave it a day or two before I watered it, but these are going to get watered. So that's the Miltoniopsis phalaenopsis, giant tag in a tiny little pot. Well, if that one went in there, the next one, the smaller one's definitely going to go in the smallest pot. Yeah, you can go in there as well. So I just got a little bit of dead stuff there that I'd rather wasn't there. Whatever it is, it looks like that may have been a failed new growth. I'd rather it wasn't there. Nothing else needs to come off. That'll do. Actually, I think I might try and take that sheath off of that older pseudo bulb. They're the places where the rot can set in. People often wonder, when things come from cloud forests, they're virtually wet all the time, and yet they don't rot. They don't rot because they've got nice clean air around them that moves, not static. Airflow. Greatly underestimated the importance of. Not a freezing cold blast, gentle, but moving. Move the air. And if possible, now and again, change your air. Get some fresh air in. Especially in like an environment like mine. I've got a closed environment. You know, there's no air, there's no windows to open, no doors to open. The only way the air can get changed is with the extractor and the inlet fan, which have been shut down for the winter now, and obviously through the door that I go in. And the air that gets exchanged through there has come from the lounge, dining room, so it's internal air. But that does get changed, you know, with outside air now and again. Right, so what have we got? Roots quite low down here, so we'll go in there. And that odd little growth is going to go up against the side. Actually, I think I'll do the same as I did before and put some moss around the base of the roots. Just give them a little extra help. Just where the roots are most likely to come out first. And I'm going to hold on to that while I gently place it in there so that it stays put. And then put the other media around the outside. Now these do have roots, don't get me wrong. The Oncidium we're going to do in a minute hasn't, but these have got some roots. And I've potted up Miltoniopsis before now with worse root systems than these on much bigger plants. Some of the hybrids are quite large plants, and they've recovered okay. These are only small plants, they've got green leaves, they can feed themselves while they get some new roots going, and they have some functional older roots. So they stand a good chance of getting going. But it is important until they get, well, even after they get established, to make sure the base of the plant isn't buried. Because they need to stay moist, they're going to be more prone to rotting at the base because they're going to stay wet around that point. Right, you don't need staking either. Oh, bonus. Trying to stake these would have been almost impossible anyway. When you've got a plant that's newly potted like this, just going to put some bark around the top so that it'll dry faster in that area. When you've got plants like this, I forgot what I was going to say now. I'm doing my day upside down here. I'm actually doing this in the morning. Now this is normally last thing in the afternoon I do this sort of thing, and this time of year it's often starting to get dark by then and I can't see what the hell I'm doing. But I'm doing this at this time of day while I'm fresh, because obviously towards the end of the day, after a massive watering session and humping plants from here and there and getting them down, hanging them up and everything, at the end of the day I'm tired. So I'm doing it now. Right, what have we got here? Now, that is a dry rhizome, but nonetheless I am actually going to put a bit of cinnamon on it. Shouldn't really need it, it's had a chance to dry off since it was separated. That's a just in case. Yay, apple pie. Oh, time for apple pie. Busy day. Right, this is highly likely to need staking, and I think I'm going to have to go up a size simply because I'm quite confident that the new roots are going to come soon. Is that going to be too big? Well, it's either that or that. It's going to have to be the bigger one. The problem is if I put a plant that size in a pot that size, it's going to keep falling over. So I think we will go for the bigger one, pot it low. I'm just going to stop the camera a minute. I do want some crocking in the bottom of this one. I'll be back. Right, so we've got some large bark in there. It is an air cone pot, but if I put small media with quite a bit of moss in it over those holes, I'll block the airflow. So by having some crocking in the bottom, you still allow air into the base of the pot, which is a mechanism for helping it dry, as well as getting some air around the roots. But it helps not get a soggy bottom in the bottom of the pot. Yeah, this mix is going to hold moisture for some time. What on earth is that? Oh, a bit of perlite. I used to use that quite a lot, but it's an absolute algae magnet, perlite. Starts off nice and shiny and white and looks wonderful, and not long later it goes green and horrible, so I've stopped using it. Right, now this is going to have to go low in the pot and just sit on the media until I see some roots, and then we'll deal with it as and when we see some roots. But until I see some roots, I just want that, a bit more than that. Those roots will have nowhere to go, but I don't want it high in the pot, I want it low. But then I'm going to have to put some more in, or I won't have anywhere to put a stake. Right, see, that's just placed, that's not going to stay there, so I'm going to have to try and stake it now. Otherwise, if I get it exactly right and exactly where I want it, when I let go to pick up a stake, it's going to fall over and it's nowhere, then it won't be where I want it anymore. Now the firmest part of this plant is in fact the old pseudo bulb, so that's going to be the best thing to stake, is that old pseudo bulb. What I'm going to try and do, if it'll have it, is put a stake down one side and another stake down the other side. I haven't got to worry about damaging roots because there ain't none. And then what you can do is, you going to stay? You're not, are you? Just put a second one in. I've got a plan here, don't worry. It's just not enough media to get a stake to get a grip. It's got a grip enough, and then what you do is you tie the stakes together. So you don't actually need to tie the plant to the stakes. Oh, you love this knot, you can go away and play with this. You can only do it if you can put it over the top of something, but you do a loop, yeah, and that bit in your right hand is over the top, yeah. Then you do it again, yeah, and then you put the second loop under the first loop, and when you pull that, it's going nowhere. It just bites. It's a really good little knot, whatever it's called. Then you can just put that over the top and pull, and the two loops will knot together and bind. Don't even need another knot. I'll put one in there in a minute when I've got this a bit more stable, because these stakes are just not staying still. Right, we will raise the plant up some more, so it's got no roots to hold on to at the moment, and we'll add some more media. And this time I'm really going to pack it down. See if we can get those stakes to stay still. It's not like I'm going to crush any roots, is it? There ain't none. Then we'll come around the other side and do the same thing and really get this media packed in solid. You don't have to worry about roots getting down into media like this. They'll punch a hole down through once they start growing. Right, now in theory, those stakes should now be quite firm. Yay! The plant still isn't though. That big long floppy leaf over there keeps touching things and then it catches. Right, push again. I think it's just going to have to be fragile. I need a little bit more just so that the base is in contact. Once I put it where it's going to go and it's been watered, it won't need to get picked up and moved around quite so often. So it'll sort of keep itself still. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put another one down in there between those two leaves and just see if it'll hold that growth as well. Every little bit helps. That's not bad now, not too wobbly at all. In fact, I'm going to stick another one down this side. I just need it to stay still, because as soon as those new roots come, they will be fragile for a while. You pick the pot up to water it and waggle it around and you can break your root tips off. Always worth trying to get your plant as firm as possible until the roots get going, and then they'll hold it still. Right, here's my tag for that one. Oncidium chrysomorphum. I must admit I'd never heard of it. I have now, and I've got one. And then the other one, that's probably the rarest orchid I'm ever going to own. The Miltoniopsis roeslei, I'll get there in a minute, isn't well, it's rare in the wild, but in cultivation they're around, but the yellow variety is not. They're like hen's teeth, they don't come up often, so that is a rarity to say the least. So there we go, 3 plants. They will get watered, and the Miltoniopsis will go with my other Miltoniopsis in my coolest area. Now one of these, I forget which way round, when I was looking them up, trying to work out how to spell them, one of these grows quite low down. It still grows in wet forests that are often shrouded in mist and fog, but at 200 metres it's not going to be cold, is it? And yet the other one grows from like 1500 metres upward. So one of these is a cold grower and one of them will be heat tolerant, but they both need that humidity in the atmosphere. They both come from montane forests. So they'll go with my other little Miltoniopsis, and hopefully in the not too distant future we'll see some root activity. Once I see root activity I know they're safe, but because they've got some roots they will be able to hydrate to a degree from the base, and they've both got a good set of leaves. They can feed themselves, because obviously I don't want high levels of food in here. Now this first watering is going to be the lowest level of feed with a little bit of seaweed added. Get some hormones in the plant, see if we can trigger some sort of root activity. And then they probably won't get fed for a while then. Anyway, that's that. 3 new plants, 3 new places to find plants for in amongst the other clutter. And obviously we'll do updates on those as and when. See you next time. Bye for now.